A billionaire mocked a waitress for giving investment advice, and what she said left him speechless. Before we begin the story, leave a comment telling us what city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. I'll have an espresso. Double. Fast. Dylan Carter didn't even look up from his phone as he tossed his Prada wallet onto the counter at Bean and Soul Cafe. 3 people behind him had to step aside so they wouldn't get hit. He didn't notice. The waitress behind the counter didn't blink. Stella Ward, 25, had seen every kind of arrogant customer Seattle had to offer. But this man? Olympic-level arrogance. "Good morning to you too," she said with a sweetness so fake it could give cavities. Dylan finally looked up. He took her in for half a second. Young, naturally pretty, probably serving coffee while chasing some dream. He knew the type. "Yeah, morning. The espresso?" Stella started preparing the drink, her movements precise and mechanical. The machine hissed. Steam rose. Dylan went back to his emails. The cafe was packed. Executives in suits argued over spreadsheets, students typed furiously on old laptops, and the smell of fresh bread mixed with ground coffee created that productive chaos atmosphere. Dylan tapped his fingers on the counter. "How long does it take to make a coffee?" "I have a meeting in 10 minutes. 30 seconds, Stella replied without looking. "But if you want me to do a bad job, I can give it to you right now." An older man with gray hair at a nearby table laughed out loud. Dylan frowned. "I didn't mean—" "Relax. Everyone's in a hurry here. Except me, of course. I have all the time in the world to serve coffee and listen to complaints." She placed the cup in front of him with a mischievous smile. Dylan wasn't sure if he was being mocked or not. $3.50. He grabbed a 20 and left it on the counter. "Keep the change." Stella took the bill, folded it slowly, and dropped it into the tip jar. "Generous. I bet you write that off as a tax deduction." More laughter. Now from 3 different tables. Dylan felt his face getting warm. He wasn't used to being the target of a joke. Usually he was the one making people laugh or tremble. "Look, sugar? Sweetener? Milk? Or do you prefer it bitter, like your personality?" That did it. The whole cafe was watching now. A woman with round glasses almost spit out her cappuccino. A kid in a cap turned his phone to record. Dylan took a deep breath. He could just leave. Pretend this never happened. But there was something about this waitress, the way she carried herself, her perfect timing, the guts to tease someone who clearly had money, that made him curious. And a little impressed. He decided to play along. "All right, you win this round. But since we're here—" He leaned on the counter smirking, in that tone people use when they always get the last word. "Give me an espresso, and some financial advice if you can." The cafe went silent. Stella stopped wiping the counter. She looked at him, then at the crowded cafe, then back at him. "Seriously? Seriously, you seem to know a lot about customer service, arrogant people, and roasting someone in public." He gave a little laugh. "I want to see if you know something about money too." That's when Stella did something no one expected. She smiled. Slowly. Dangerously. "Depends," she said, crossing her arms. "Do you want quick profit or a clean conscience?" The cafe erupted in laughter. The guy in the cap hit the table. The woman with glasses clapped. Even the tattooed barista in the back, Jake, let out a long, dramatic "ooh." Dylan Carter, closer of multi-million-dollar deals, master of corporate intimidation, stood there. Speechless. For the first time in years, Stella kept going, relentless. "Because if it's quick profit, I'd suggest shady crypto and hope you don't end up under SEC investigation. Now, if it's a clean conscience—" She paused dramatically. "You'll need more than an espresso, sweetheart. You'll need therapy." More laughter. Dylan felt his ears burn. I wasn't expecting a real answer." "Oh, I thought you were asking for free consulting." She tilted her head. Or was it just another way to make fun of the waitress? The laughter faded. People started going back to their phones, but still kept an eye on them. Dylan realized he'd crossed an invisible line. This wasn't just playful banter anymore. There was something heavier in the air. Stella wasn't smiling anymore. She picked up a cloth and went back to wiping the counter, but now her movements were sharper, almost aggressive. Dylan lowered his voice. "Look, I didn't mean to offend you. It was just a joke." "I know," she said without looking at him. "Everyone thinks they can make jokes about people who serve coffee because we're just that, right? Someone who takes orders, someone invisible." Her voice was calm, but there was something broken underneath. Dylan felt a strange weight in his chest. "That's not what I meant. You don't have to explain." Stella finally looked at him, and Dylan saw it. There, in those tired eyes, there was more than irritation. There was pain. "You've already paid. You can go." She turned her back and walked to the sink. Dylan stayed there, holding the coffee cup, feeling everyone's eyes on him. He wanted to say something. But what? That's when he saw it. On the corner of the counter near the register, a small brown notebook. Worn. Old. With a few handwritten words along the spine. "Profit without purpose is loss in disguise." Dylan frowned. Before he could think too much, Stella came back, grabbed the notebook quickly, and tucked it into her apron pocket. But not before Dylan saw how carefully she held it. Like someone holding a relic. She didn't say another word, she just nodded. A gesture that meant, "You can leave now." Dylan took the coffee and walked out. Outside, the light rain in Seattle had just started to fall. He stood there for a few seconds, watching the street, the reflections of the lights on the wet glass. And then he did something he never did. He laughed. For real. Because for the first time in his life, Dylan Carter had just been completely destroyed by someone earning minimum wage. And strangely, he liked it. Meanwhile, inside, Stella leaned against the back wall and took a deep breath. She opened the notebook. She ran her fingers over her father's handwriting. "Never let anyone make you feel small, especially those who never had to be big." She closed her eyes. "I tried, Dad. I really tried." But deep down, a part of her knew. That man was coming back. And she didn't know if she was ready for that. Dylan Carter wasn't the kind of man who went back to the same places. Especially not crowded coffee shops where waitresses verbally destroyed him in front of an audience. But there he was, again, at Bean and Soul, 8:15 a.m. Stella saw him walk in. Of course she did. Hard not to notice a $3,000 suit in a cafe where most customers wore hoodies and regret. She pretended not to see him. "One espresso," Dylan said as he reached the counter. "Double, please." Oh, so now he knew how to say please. Stella slowly looked up with that perfectly professional "how can I help you" expression. "Good morning, sir. Same as yesterday?" "Yes." Dylan hesitated. "And no sarcastic comments about my personality if possible." Stella almost smiled. Almost. Sarcastic comments cost extra. "You didn't pay for them today." Jake, the tattooed barista, let out a muffled laugh from the back. Dylan sighed, but there was an amused glint in his eyes. "How much to not be teased while I drink my coffee?" "About $5,000, Stella said without blinking. "But then you'd have to sit in the VIP area." "You have a VIP area?" "No." She started making the espresso. "But for $5,000, I'll make one up." This time Dylan laughed. For real. A low, genuine sound that completely changed his face. Stella noticed. And immediately wished she hadn't. Because rich men with a sense of humor were dangerous. Especially when they came back the next day. "So," Dylan said, leaning casually against the counter, a little too casual to be natural. "Do you always work mornings? Or am I just lucky?" "Depends." Stella placed the cup in front of him. "Do you always return to the places where you were publicly humiliated, or is that just a hobby?" Jake coughed to cover another laugh. A customer in line behind Dylan whispered, "I love this cafe." Dylan grabbed the cup but didn't move away from the counter. "Actually, I came back because—" He paused dramatically. "I forgot my umbrella yesterday." Stella looked at him, looked out the window at the bright Seattle sun, looked back at him. "Yes, it's really pouring today." "It is." Dylan kept a straight face. "Forecast said it's going to get worse." "Of course." Stella crossed her arms. "And what color was your imaginary umbrella?" "Blue. With stripes. Very expensive. How convenient. We didn't find any." "What bad luck." Dylan took a sip of his coffee. "I guess I'll have to come back tomorrow to look again." The whole cafe was listening now. 3 people weren't even pretending to be on their phones. Stella felt her cheeks warm but kept her face neutral. "Sir, if you're trying to flirt, there's an app for that, and it's very effective." "Oh, but that app doesn't serve decent coffee." "True, but it also doesn't give out sarcastic comments for free." "They're not free for me. I already paid with my dignity." Stella bit her lip to keep from laughing. She wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. But Dylan saw it, that almost smile, and it felt like winning the lottery. $3.50, Stella said, snapping back into professional mode. Dylan handed her another 20. I know, you keep the change and declare it on your taxes. Learning fast, she said, taking the bill. I've got a good teacher. That's when Stella heard the voice she dreaded the most. Stella. My office, now. Richard, the manager. 50 years old, beer belly, vulture eyes. He never called anyone to the office for something good. The smile vanished from Stella's face. I'll be right back, she told Jake, removing her apron. Dylan frowned. Everything okay? She didn't answer. She just followed Richard to the small office in the back, feeling her stomach tighten. Richard closed the door. You're flirting with customers. It wasn't a question. No, sir. I saw it. He crossed his arms. Yesterday. Today. That man in the expensive suit. You know the rules, Stella. No personal relationships with customers. It drives other customers away. I wasn't flirting, I was just being polite. Being polite doesn't include smiling like that. Stella felt anger rise. Like that? You know exactly what I mean. Richard sighed. Look, you're a good employee, on time, efficient, but I can't have drama here, so stop, or you'll have to find another job. The words hit like stones. Another job, as if it were easy, as if she didn't desperately need this paycheck to pay for college, as if she had options. Understood, she said tightly. Good. You can go back. Stella left the office with trembling hands. She returned to the counter and put her apron back on. Dylan was still there, waiting. Everything okay? He asked, genuine concern on his face. Everything's fine, Stella lied, forcing a professional smile. Can I help you with anything else? Dylan opened his mouth, closed it. He realized something had changed. No, I'm good. He picked up his coffee and walked out slowly, glancing back going through the door. Stella took a deep breath. She looked at the tip jar, thought about the tuition bill due in 2 weeks. She thought about her father, the father who believed in the honesty of the financial market, who had invested everything in a guaranteed opportunity, who died in debt 3 years ago, still believing the system was fair, who left behind that brown notebook full of phrases about ethics and purpose, as if those things really mattered in the real world. Stella squeezed her eyes shut, pushing back the tears. Next, she called firmly. Outside, Dylan stopped on the sidewalk. He grabbed his phone, hesitated. Then he typed the name of the cafe into Google and looked up the staff. Stella Ward, 25 years old, economics student at the University of Washington. He smiled. She wasn't just a waitress. And Dylan Carter had just become a lot more interested. Dylan went back to Bean and Soul the next day, and the day after, and the day after that. Always at 8:15, always ordering a double espresso, always trying to make Stella smile without the manager noticing. But today, Stella was different, distracted. She dropped a cup, gave the wrong change, kept looking at the door like she was expecting someone, or running from someone. Coffee to go today, she said when Dylan got to the counter before he could even order. Well, good morning to you too, he replied with a smile. Sorry, she rubbed her face. Rough day. It's 8:30 in the morning. Exactly. Dylan frowned, concerned. But before he could ask anything, Stella's phone rang. She looked at the screen and turned pale. I have to take this. Jake, she called to the barista. Cover for me. She ran to the back before Jake could even respond. Dylan was left alone at the counter, holding the coffee she had prepared on autopilot. That's when he saw it. The brown notebook, forgotten on the counter, half hidden behind the register. Dylan looked around. Jake was busy with 3 customers. Nobody was paying attention. He shouldn't. He knew he shouldn't, but curiosity won. Dylan picked up the notebook, opened the first page. Property of Michael Ward, and one day, of Stella. The handwriting was neat. Someone who wrote slowly, with purpose. He turned a page, and another, and another. Each page had short sentences, some in black ink, others in blue. Dates next to some. Money is like water. It can quench thirst or drown. It depends on how you use it. Profit without purpose is loss in disguise. This one had a star next to it, like it was especially important. Dylan read it again and again. Profit without purpose is loss in disguise. Something tightened in his chest, because Dylan Carter had plenty of profit, billions of dollars in profit. But purpose? He kept flipping through the pages, more lines, more wisdom, until he reached the final ones. The handwriting changed. It was shakier. The dates were more recent. Stella, if you're reading this, I'm probably already gone. Don't be sad. Be smart. The world isn't fair, but you're strong enough to change that. Profit without purpose is just loss in disguise. Don't ever forget, Dad loves you. March 15th, 2022. Dylan quickly closed the notebook as if it had burned him. That was Stella's last conversation with her father, written down, preserved, carried in her apron pocket every single day, and he had just invaded it. "What are you doing?" Dylan looked up and froze. Stella was standing there, pale, wide-eyed, staring at the notebook in his hands. I found it on the counter. I was going to give it back to you." While reading it, her voice was low and dangerous. "You were going to give it back while reading it?" "No, I just—" Dylan held the notebook out to her. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." Stella ripped the notebook from his hands like he had stolen something priceless. "And you had no right." "I know." Dylan ran a hand through his hair. "Stella, I'm really sorry. I swear I didn't—" "Didn't what?" She held the notebook to her chest. "Didn't invade my privacy? Didn't disrespect me? Didn't do exactly the kind of thing rich people think they can do because they have money?" Every word was a knife, and Dylan deserved every single one. "You're right." He took a deep breath. "It was all of that. I have no excuse." Stella looked at him. Her eyes were shining, not with tears, with anger. "You know what's worse? I was starting to think you were different." She let out a humorless laugh. "But you're just like the others. You think you can take whatever you want, whenever you want, just because you can. It's not like that." "Then what is it, Dylan?" It was the first time she used his first name, and it sounded like an accusation. "Explain it to me." He had no answer. Because she was right, the cafe was silent now, everyone listening. Again, but this time no one was laughing. Jake stepped closer, protective. "Everything okay here, Stella?" "Yeah." She didn't take her eyes off Dylan. The customer was just leaving. The word customer hurt more than it should have, because in the past few days, Dylan had started seeing himself as something more. A friend, maybe, or trying to be. But Stella had just made it clear, he was just another rich customer, inconvenient. "Stella, please, let me explain." "You don't have to." She turned away. "Your coffee's already paid. Have a nice day." The coldness in her voice was worse than any shout. Dylan stood there for a few more seconds, holding his lukewarm coffee, feeling everyone's judgmental eyes on him. Then he left. Outside, he leaned against the wall of the building next door, breathing deeply. He opened his phone, went straight to Google. Michael Ward, Seattle deceased. The results popped up fast. Michael Ward, 52, died on March 15, 2022. Cause: heart attack. Survived by his wife and daughter. Ward was a freelance accountant known in the community for his volunteer work teaching financial literacy to low-income families. Dylan kept reading. In his final years, Ward faced financial hardship after investing his savings in a company that promised guaranteed returns. The company was later investigated for a pyramid scheme. Ward lost everything, but continued believing in the honesty of the system until the end. Dylan closed his eyes. Now he understood. Why Stella carried that notebook like a relic. Why those quotes about financial ethics mattered so much. Why she held such disdain for people like him, people who played with money without thinking about the consequences. Her father had died believing a lie, and Stella carried that weight every day. Dylan looked back at the cafe. Through the window, he saw Stella with her back turned, wiping the counter with mechanical movements. He had to fix this. But how do you apologize for invading someone's most precious memory? Dylan didn't know, but he was going to find out, because for the first time in his life, someone's opinion truly mattered to him. Dylan didn't show up at Bean and Soul for 3 days. Stella pretended not to notice, pretended not to glance at the door every time the bell rang at 8:15, pretended she was fine, but Jake wasn't stupid. "Where's your fancy-suit admirer?" he asked on the morning of the 4th day. "He's not my admirer." "Of course not." Jake rolled his eyes. "That's why you're looking at the door every 5 seconds." "I'm not." The bell rang. Stella turned her head automatically. It wasn't Dylan. It was a woman in yoga pants carrying a chihuahua in her purse. Jake laughed. "What were you saying?" Stella threw a rag at him. But at exactly 8:15, the door opened again, and this time it was Dylan. Only different. Nervous, holding a brown leather folder under his arm, he walked straight to the counter. "Hi." "Hi," Stella replied, keeping her voice neutral. Can I order an espresso?" "It's a coffee shop. We sell coffee." "Of course you can." Dylan deserved that. And he knew it. Double, please. Stella started preparing it in silence. The tension was so thick that Jake pretended to go to the storage room just to get away. Look, Dylan began. About the notebook, I was an idiot. You were. A complete idiot. That too. I have no excuse for what I did. Stella placed the cup in front of him with more force than necessary. A little spilled onto the saucer. $3.50. Dylan put a $50 bill on the counter. Keep the change. I don't want your guilt money. It's not guilt money. He pushed the bill back when she tried to return it. It's, I'm a regretful idiot and don't know how to fix it money. Despite everything, Stella almost smiled. Almost. You don't fix it. You just don't do it again. I promise. Dylan raised his right hand. I'll never invade your privacy again, read your stuff, or act like some arrogant billionaire who thinks he can do whatever he wants. That'll be hard for you. Probably. He smiled awkwardly. But I'll try. Stella studied him for a long moment, then sighed. Fine. I accept your apology. Now you can leave and stop making me risk my job for chatting with customers. Actually, Dylan hesitated. I came to ask you a favor. Seriously? Yeah, I know. Terrible timing. But he opened his briefcase and pulled out some documents. Could you take a look at this? Stella frowned. At what? An investment proposal. Dylan spread the papers out on the counter. My partner wants us to join in, but something feels off. I can't figure out what. And you want me to. What exactly? Give your opinion. He shrugged. Just for fun. Stella looked at him, then at the papers, then back at him. Are you out of your mind? Probably. Dylan smiled. But that thing you said about quick profit versus a clean conscience, it stuck with me. So I thought, why not ask the source? The source is working. 2 minutes. Dylan held up 2 fingers. Just look and tell me what you think. She shouldn't. She had customers waiting, a manager already watching her. 1,000 reasons to say no, but curiosity won. She pulled the papers closer and started reading. It took exactly 90 seconds. This is a scam, she said, pushing the documents back. Dylan blinked. What? It's a pyramid scheme. Stella pointed at a chart. Look at the return structure. It relies on a constant flow of new investors. In the second year, the numbers don't add up. Unless you find infinite investors, someone's going to lose money. Probably you. Dylan took the papers back, studying where she pointed. I didn't see that, because you're only looking at the big numbers. Stella leaned closer. But the trap is always in the small ones. Always. How do you know that? Stella pulled back, realizing she'd said too much. I read. Nobody learns this just by reading. Then maybe I'm really smart. She forced a smile. Who knows? Dylan opened his mouth to respond, but was interrupted by a voice behind him. Dylan? So this is where you're hiding? A man in his 40s, perfectly combed gray hair, and a suit even more expensive than Dylan's, approached the counter. Dylan closed his eyes briefly, as if praying for patience. Marcus, what are you doing here? Looking for you. Marcus glanced around with thinly veiled disdain. Meeting in 20 minutes, remember? About that investment He stopped when he saw the papers on the counter. Having the waitress review? The way he said, waitress, made Stella clench her jaw. Stella is a consultant, Dylan said, his voice tight. Consultant? Marcus smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Of course. And I'm an astronaut in my free time. Marcus, I get it. Marcus turned to Stella, every word dripping with condescension. You've read some articles online, watched a few YouTube videos, and now you think you understand finance. Cute. But leave the real work to the professionals, okay? Stella froze. Not out of anger. She was used to anger. It was humiliation, the way he looked at her, like she was nothing, like she was invisible. She's right about the investment, Dylan said, his voice cold. It's a pyramid scheme, Marcus laughed. She took 90 seconds to decide that? Dylan, come on. Our entire team spent weeks on this. Maybe the entire team is wrong, or maybe you're letting a pretty waitress distract you from a $50 million deal. Silence. Stella felt her face burn. She could feel every pair of eyes in the cafe turning toward her. She saw Jake take a protective step forward, but she made a small gesture for him to stop. I'll get more coffee, she said softly. Excuse me. And she turned away before anyone could see the tears she was holding back. In the back, leaning against the cold wall, Stella took a deep breath. Stuck-up waitress. Those weren't Marcus's exact words, but they were all there, in the way he said it, in the way he looked at her. as if she had no right to have an opinion, to be intelligent, to be anything more than someone who serves coffee. She opened the little notebook, ran her fingers over her father's last words. "You're strong enough to change this." "I'm trying, Dad," she whispered. "But it's so hard." Outside, Dylan had grabbed Marcus by the arm and dragged him out of the cafe. "Don't you ever talk to her like that again." Marcus pulled away. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about." Marcus studied Dylan's face, then smiled. That smile of someone who just discovered a secret. "Oh, you like her?" Dylan didn't respond. He didn't have to. Marcus shook his head, amused and dismissive at the same time. "A billionaire falling for a waitress? This is going to be interesting." Stella was in the middle of her afternoon shift when Jake came running toward her, phone in hand. "You need to see this." "I'm busy." "No, really. Look," he showed her the screen. A LinkedIn post with thousands of likes. "Honored to speak today at the Seattle Business Conference about our new philosophy at Anderson Capital. Profit without purpose is just disguised loss. Sometimes the best ideas come from the most unexpected places. Ethical investment purpose." The photo, Dylan on stage in a perfect suit, confident smile, the phrase projected behind him in huge letters. Stella felt her blood freeze, then boil. "That," she searched for a polite word, didn't find one. "Shameless?" Jake offered. "That's an understatement." A woman in line cleared her throat, impatient. "Excuse me? My cappuccino?" Stella made the coffee on autopilot, her mind racing. The conference was nearby, at the convention center, a 15-minute walk. She checked the clock, 2:47 p.m. Her break was at 3:00. "Jake, cover for me." "Stella, don't do anything you'll regret." But she was already taking off her apron. 10 minutes later, Stella walked into the convention center like she belonged there. No one stopped her. No one asked for a badge, because no one really pays attention. She followed the signs to the grand ballroom. Double doors, the muffled sound of applause inside. She slowly pushed the door open. The room was packed. 300 people maybe, all in suits and formal dresses, all staring at the stage, where Dylan Carter was finishing his presentation. And that's why I believe the future of investment isn't just about maximizing profit, but maximizing purpose. Loud applause. Stella felt her anger rising. "Any questions?" Several hands went up. Dylan pointed to a woman in the front. "Mr. Carter, that phrase, profit without purpose is just disguised loss, is brilliant. Is it yours?" Dylan hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. "It's inspired by conversations I've had recently with some very wise people." People, plural, vague. Convenient. Stella raised her hand. "Hi." Dylan didn't see her at first, but when he did, the color drained from his face. "You in the back." The moderator pointed at Stella. Everyone turned. Stella stood up slowly, 300 pairs of eyes on her. "Hi, Dylan." His name. No Mr. Carter. No formalities. The entire room felt it. Dylan swallowed hard. "Stella, I didn't know you were here." "Surprise." She smiled. It wasn't friendly. "I have a question about that lovely phrase you're using." "Stella, maybe we can talk about this later." No, it's quick. I promise." She started walking down the center aisle. Each step echoed through the silent room. "You said it was inspired by wise people." Plural. Interesting. Dylan was pale now. Yes. Because I remember a very specific conversation." Stella stopped halfway down the aisle. "When you invaded my privacy, read my late father's notebook, and then stole the last words he ever wrote to me." Dead silence. You could hear a pin drop. Does that count as inspiration? Or is there another word for it? A woman in the third row whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Oh my God, this is better than Netflix." Dylan stepped down from the stage, walked toward Stella. "You're right, I should have given you credit." Stella crossed her arms. "How generous of you to admit the obvious." Some people laughed nervously. "Stella, please, let me explain in private." "No." She looked around the room. "Every single person here heard you use my father's words as your own. Every single person clapped for you, so every single person can hear the truth." The moderator tried to step in. "Maybe we should take a break." "No need." Stella said. "This'll be quick." She turned back to Dylan. "Michael Ward, my father, accountant, volunteer, a man who spent his life teaching financial ethics to low-income families. He died 3 years ago in debt because he trusted a fraudulent investment scheme. His last words to me were in a notebook. And his favorite phrase was, Profit without purpose is loss in disguise. The room was so silent you could hear people breathing. That phrase isn't yours, Dylan. It never was. And you know it. Dylan closed his eyes briefly. You're right. Completely. And I apologize, publicly, in front of everyone here. Oh, how sweet. Stella was not impressed. Public apologies after being exposed, so brave. Stella, you know what's worse? Her voice shook slightly. I was starting to think you were different. That maybe, just maybe, there was a billionaire out there who didn't think he could take whatever he wanted without consequences. I'm not, but you are. She stepped back. You're exactly like all the others. The only difference is you wear a nicer suit. Someone in the back whispered, Wow, she destroyed him. Dylan ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. What do you want me to do? Tell me. Anything. Stella studied him for a long moment. I want you to look at these 300 people and tell the truth, the whole truth. No corporate sugarcoating, no inspiration or wise words, the truth. Dylan nodded slowly. He walked back to the stage. Took the microphone. The room waited. My name is Dylan Carter, and a few weeks ago I invaded someone's privacy, read something that wasn't meant for me, and then used those words as if they were mine. Tiffin, his voice was clear and steady. The phrase, profit without purpose is loss in disguise, belongs to Michael Ward. A man I never met, but who, from what I understand, was a better person than I'll ever be. Stella Ward, his daughter, is here today because I didn't have the courage to give credit when I should have, so I'm doing it now. Publicly. Michael Ward said it, not me. And if you find those words inspiring, remember his name, not mine. Silence. Then someone started clapping. Slowly, then another and another. Within seconds, the whole room was applauding. But not for Dylan, for Stella. She felt her eyes burn, but she didn't let the tears fall. Not there. Not in front of them. She turned and walked out without looking back. Dylan tried to follow, but the moderator stopped him. Mr. Carter, maybe give her some time. Outside, Stella leaned against the hallway wall, taking a deep breath. Jake had called 5 times. She ignored them all. She pulled the notebook from her pocket, opened to the last page. You're strong enough to change this. I tried, Dad, she whispered. But is it worth it? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I'm a journalist from the Seattle Times. I saw what happened at the conference. I'd like to write a piece about you and your father. Interested? Stella stared at the message for a long moment. Then typed, yes, but with one condition. The story is about him, not me. The reply came quickly, deal. Stella slipped her phone back into her pocket and headed to the cafe. Because at the end of the day, bills still had to be paid. Diplomas still had to be earned. And Dylan Carter wasn't going to ruin anything else for her. Or at least, that's what she thought. Emerging Markets Analysis class started at 7 p.m. Stella arrived at 6:58 like always. 3rd row, left side. Same seat as usual. Ben was already there, smiling with that annoying energy of someone who'd had way too much coffee. Well, celebrity. Stella frowned. What are you talking about? Don't tell me you haven't seen it. Ben grabbed his phone. You're viral, girl. He showed her the screen, a TikTok video with 2.3 million views. Waitress destroys billionaire in public. It was her, at the conference. Confronting Dylan. Someone had filmed everything. Oh no, Stella groaned. Oh yes, Ben was thrilled. You're like my hero now. Everyone in class is talking about it. As if on cue, Mike walked in. Stella, you're amazing. That guy deserved every word. Sarah followed right after. Girl, I watched it 3 times. 3. The part where you said, you have a nicer suit? Iconic. Guys, please. Stella sank into her chair. I just want a normal class. Normal? Ben laughed. You just went viral for destroying a billionaire. Normal is over for you. Professor Chen walked in, right on time. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're going to discuss. He stopped when he saw Stella. Ah, Miss Ward, I saw the video. The entire class turned to look at her. Professor, I can explain. No need. Chen smiled. It was a master class in corporate accountability. Well done. Stella didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Thank you, I guess. Now, Chen adjusted his glasses. Let's focus on the lesson. Open Chapter 7 on power dynamics in financial negotiations. Ben whispered, You've already lived this chapter, huh? Stella elbowed him. The class went on as usual. Discussions about emerging markets, investment strategies, risk analysis. Then Chen put up a slide with a case study. Company X, new investment philosophy focused on purpose. Feasibility analysis. Stella recognized it immediately. It was about Anderson Capital, about Dylan. Can anyone comment on this approach? Chen asked. Mike raised his hand. I think it's marketing. No billionaire really cares about purpose. They just want to look good. Interesting. Anyone disagree? Sarah raised her hand. I do. I think some executives actually want to make a difference, like that Dylan Carter. At least he admitted his mistake publicly. Because he was forced to, Mike shot back. If Stella hadn't stepped in, he never would have given credit. Okay, are you seriously talking about me in the third person right now? Stella interrupted. I'm right here, guys. The class laughed. Chen smiled. Miss Ward, since you have first-hand experience with the case, what's your analysis? Is Anderson Capital's philosophical shift genuine or just a marketing strategy? Every head turned to her. Stella sighed. Honestly, I don't know. She paused. Part of me thinks he really cares, but the other part remembers he only cared after being caught. So, who knows? Very balanced answer, Chen said. And realistic. In business, motivations are rarely black and white. Ben leaned over and whispered, Translation, you still like him. Shut up, Ben. Oh, you do. I'm going to kill you. Miss Ward, Mr. Martinez, Chen looked at them over his glasses. Anything you'd like to share with the class? No, Professor, they both answered in unison. The lesson continued, but Stella could barely focus, because her phone wouldn't stop buzzing in her pocket. When the break finally came, she checked her messages, 17 of them, all from Dylan. Can we talk? Please, just 5 minutes. I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need to tell you something important. It's about Marcus. I found something serious. That last one made her pause. Marcus. The arrogant partner who had called her a wannabe waitress. Against her better judgment, she replied, What? The response came instantly. I can't say it over text. It's serious? Please meet me after class? Stella stared at the message for a long time. Ben showed up with 2 cups of machine coffee. He texted you, didn't he? How do you know? Because you've got that look. The I know I should ignore him, but I'll answer anyway look. He handed her a cup. Friendly advice, if you're meeting him, don't go alone. I'm not meeting him. Of course not. Ben took a sip of the coffee and grimaced. Good Lord, this coffee is awful. How do you stand serving this every day? Bean and Soul's coffee is better. Oh yeah? Ben smiled. I've never been there. Too expensive for me. So are the customers, Stella muttered. When class started again, Stella still hadn't answered Dylan's last message. But deep down, she already knew she would. Because there was something in his urgency, something real. And because, despite everything, part of her still wanted to believe he could be different, even knowing she'd probably regret it. At 9:30 p.m., when class ended, Stella finally typed, Tomorrow. 6 a.m., Bean and Soul. You get there before we open. Knock on the back door. And Dylan, this is your last chance. The reply came before she left the parking lot. I'll be there. Thank you, Stella. You won't regret this. Stella put away her phone and drove home, but deep down she already was regretting it. Stella arrived at Bean and Soul at 5:45 a.m. The cafe was still closed, the street empty, Seattle wrapped in that cold fog that makes people question their life choices. Like agreeing to meet a billionaire at 6 a.m., she unlocked the back door and went inside. Turned on the lights, started prepping the coffee machine. At 5:58, someone knocked on the door. Punctual, of course. Stella opened it. Dylan was there, but not the usual polished Dylan. This Dylan had deep circles under his eyes, messy hair, unshaven face. His suit was wrinkled like he had slept in it. If he'd slept at all. You look terrible, Stella said. Good morning to you too. She let him in and locked the door behind him. Coffee? Please. Stella made 2 espressos in silence. She put one in front of him. Dylan took a sip and sighed. I forgot how good your coffee is. Flattery won't work on me. It's not flattery, it's a fact. He took another sip. Look, I know you don't want to be here. Correct. But I need your help. And before you say no, he raised his hand. It's not for me. It's to stop hundreds of people from losing everything they have. Stella crossed her arms. Explain. Dylan pulled a folder from his bag and spread documents across the counter. Marcus, my partner, he's setting up a scheme. An investment fund that promises 40% a year, guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed at 40% a year. Exactly. Dylan pointed to a spreadsheet. I started investigating after the conference, because you made me think. If I was willing to steal credit, what else was I willing to ignore? Stella took the spreadsheet. She studied the numbers. This is classic Ponzi. Early investors receive returns paid with new investors' money. That's what I thought. But I need certainty. I need someone who can see what I can't. And your expensive team of analysts? Dylan made a face. Half work for Marcus. The other half are afraid of him. I can't trust anyone in there. So you came to the waitress. I came to the only person who had the courage to confront me publicly. He held her gaze. The only person I know can't be bought. Stella studied the documents in silence for a few minutes. There's an event, right? Where he's going to launch this officially? Dylan nodded. Investors Gala. Tomorrow night, he'll present the fund to potential victims. People with money but not necessarily financial knowledge. Dentists, doctors, small business owners, people who will lose everything. And you want me to, what? Show up and shout fraud? No, I want you to go with me. As my companion. Analyze his presentation in real time. Help me identify the flaws I can use to expose the scheme. Stella stared at him. Are you crazy? Probably. I can't go to a billionaire's gala, Dylan. I serve coffee, remember? You're the smartest person I know, and I need you. You've known me for a month. Then you're the smartest person I've met in a month. Point stands. Despite everything, Stella almost smiled. Why should I trust you again? Dylan was quiet for a moment. Because this time it's not about me. It's about the people who will be deceived. Like your father was. He hesitated. I read about him. After the conference, the scheme that destroyed his savings. And I understand why you hate me so much. I don't hate you. No? Hate takes energy. You're not worth that much effort. Dylan laughed. A short, genuine sound. Fair. Stella drummed her fingers on the counter, thinking. Her father had lost everything believing a false promise. If she could stop that from happening to others, I'll go, she said finally. But on conditions, anything. First, no pretending. Don't present me as a consultant or any euphemism. I'll go as Stella Ward, waitress, student, daughter of Michael Ward. Agreed. Second, if this is some setup to make me look stupid, I swear I'll make the conference look like a kid's game. It's not a setup. Third, Stella leaned on the counter. You need training. Dylan blinked. Training? You speak like a corporate robot, implementing strategic synergy, maximizing operational efficiency. Nobody talks like that. I speak like that. And that's why you need help. She picked up his coffee. If we're doing this, you need to seem less CEO and more human. How do I do that? Practice. Stella pointed at him. Situation. Someone asks how you met me. Answer. Dylan thought. Stella is an extraordinarily talented financial consultant. Wrong. Stella made a buzzer sound. Too robotic. Again. She gave me good advice. Better, but still too formal. Try. We met at a cafe. She put me in my place, and I realized I needed to listen to more people like her. Dylan repeated, smiling faintly. We met at a cafe. She put me in my place, and I realized I needed to listen to more people like her. See? Human. Natural. Stella crossed her arms. Next. Someone makes a condescending comment about me being a waitress. How do you react? I break his nose? Second best option? Dylan grew serious. I'd say a person's job doesn't define their intelligence, and I'd rather spend one evening with someone honest serving coffee than with 100 dishonest executives drinking champagne. Stella blinked, surprised. That was actually good. I had a good teacher. Don't try to flatter me again. It's not flattery if it's true. Stella rolled her eyes, but she was fighting back a smile. All right, last scenario, Marcus realizes you're investigating him. What do? Improvise? That's your strategy. It's worked so far. You literally stole credit from a dead person and got exposed in public. Your so far is questionable. Dylan couldn't help but laugh. Fair. Stella looked at him, really looked, and she saw something different. Vulnerability. Purpose. Something real beneath the corporate mask. Maybe he really was trying to change, or maybe she was just foolish enough to believe it. Fine, she finally said. I'll go. But Dylan, this is your last chance. Don't ruin it. I won't. And I need a dress. I'll have my assistant. No, I'll choose. You just pay. Dylan smiled. Deal. Stella held out her hand. Dylan shook it, and for the first time in weeks, she felt something other than anger when she looked at him. Hope, maybe, or just the thrill of finally doing something that mattered. At 6:30 a.m., Jake arrived to open the cafe and found the two still talking. Am I interrupting something? No. Stella said quickly. Dylan was just leaving. Yeah, I'm going. Dylan grabbed his briefcase. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., my driver will pick you up. I'll drive. Stella, I drive. Dylan sighed. All right. I'll text you the address. He left through the back door. Jake looked at Stella with that "I knew it" expression. Don't start, she warned. I didn't say anything. You're thinking out loud. I'm just thinking that maybe the billionaire isn't that bad. Stella threw a towel at him. But deep down, way deep down, she was thinking the same thing. And that scared her more than any investor gala ever could. The dress cost $200 at a vintage thrift store. Black, simple, nothing flashy. Stella had chosen it specifically to not draw attention. So why on earth was everyone staring at her? She walked down the stairs of the Grand Seattle Hotel next to Dylan, and it was like someone had hit the pause button. Conversations stopped, heads turned. A waiter almost dropped a tray of champagne. Why is everyone looking? Stella whispered out of the corner of her mouth. Because you're the most beautiful person here, Dylan said naturally. Stop saying nonsense. It's not nonsense. It's statistics. You can't use statistics to compliment someone. I just did. Stella rolled her eyes but felt her face get warm. The ballroom was absurdly luxurious. Crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than her car. Tables with flower arrangements that could feed a family for a month. People wearing more jewelry than common sense. Remember, Dylan murmured as he picked up 2 glasses of champagne. You're an independent consultant. Nothing more specific than that. Lying wasn't part of the deal. It's not a lie. You literally gave me investment advice. At a coffee shop counter. Consulting doesn't require a specific location. Before Stella could respond, a woman appeared out of nowhere. Blonde, wearing an expensive red dress and smiling like a blade. Dylan, what a surprise to see you here. Dylan's body stiffened. Stella noticed. Victoria. And who's your date? Victoria looked Stella up and down, not subtly. This is Stella Ward, Dylan said. Independent consultant. Stella, this is Victoria Ashford. The last name rang a bell in Stella's head. Ashford, as in Ashford Enterprises. As in, his ex-fiancée, Victoria added with a poisonous smile. Dylan didn't mention? Must have slipped his mind, Stella replied smoothly. Selective memory. It happens. Victoria blinked, clearly not expecting that. How fun. She turned to Dylan. So you're dating consultants now? How democratic of you, Victoria, Dylan warned. What? It's a compliment. Victoria took a sip of champagne. Although I'm curious, consultant in what exactly? Ethical investments, Stella answered before Dylan could. I specialize in spotting when people are being deceived. Victoria narrowed her eyes. Fascinating. And where did you study? University of Washington State, Victoria smiled. Charming. Stella caught the jab but kept smiling. Yeah, it has the advantage of not needing a parental donation to get in. Dylan choked on his champagne. Victoria turned red. Excuse me, I need to greet some people. She walked off in furious steps. Dylan looked at Stella with a mix of shock and admiration. You just destroyed my ex-fiancée. She started it. I know, it was beautiful. Traumatizing, but beautiful. Stella took a sip of the champagne. It was good. Probably cost more than her rent. So, ex-fiancée? When were you planning to mention that? In my defense, we broke up 2 years ago. And she still comes to your events? Our parents are friends. It's complicated. Complicated is what rich people say when they don't have the guts to set boundaries. Dylan laughed. You really have a comeback for everything, don't you? Comes with the job. Customer wants milk? We've got it. Wants me to fix their existential problems while I make their coffee? We've got that too. Is that on the menu? It's the house special. They moved around the ballroom, Dylan greeting people, Stella watching everything with sharp eyes. She spotted Marcus immediately. Impossible not to. He was at the center of a group, gesturing animatedly, clearly selling something. He's pitching, Stella whispered. Already? Look at the body language. Open hands, leaning forward, confident smile. He's fishing. Dylan frowned. We need to get closer. Wait. Stella grabbed his arm. If we go together, he'll get suspicious. Let me go alone. Stella, I'm invisible to people like him, remember? Stuck-up waitress? He won't even register I'm there. Dylan hesitated, then nodded. Be careful. Stella approached the group casually, pretending to admire a floral arrangement nearby. Marcus was in full performance mode. Guaranteed returns of 40% a year. No risk, completely safe. How can you guarantee that? A man around 50 asked. Proprietary strategy. Marcus answered smoothly. I can't reveal details, of course. Trade secret. But I can tell you we've had satisfied investors for 3 years. No losses, only profit. Stella saw the lie between the lines. 3 years. The perfect amount of time for a Ponzi scheme to run before it collapses. And what's the minimum investment? A woman asked. $50,000. But for close friends, Marcus smiled, we can consider 40. Stella almost let out a sarcastic how generous but held back. That's when she felt someone watching. She turned slightly. Victoria, staring at her with unsettling intensity. Not good. Stella stepped away from Marcus's group and returned to Dylan. He's openly selling the scam. Minimum investment is $50,000. Did you get any details on the structure? No, but Excuse me for interrupting. Victoria's voice cut through the room. Everyone stopped talking. Victoria stood at the center of the ballroom, champagne glass raised, wearing a venomous smile. I just want to welcome everyone, and make a special remark about one of our guests tonight. Stella's stomach sank. Stella Ward. Victoria gestured toward her. Independent consultant. Fascinating story, isn't it? Dylan took a step forward, but Stella discreetly grabbed his arm. Let me, she whispered. Because I got so curious, Victoria continued, that I did a quick Google search. And guess what? Stella isn't just a consultant. She also has another job. At Bean and Soul Cafe. As a waitress. Murmurs spread through the ballroom. Now, Victoria smiled widely. There's nothing wrong with serving coffee, of course. It's honest work. But I have to wonder, did Dylan bring a service professional to advise us on multi-million-dollar investments? The silence was deafening. Stella could feel everyone staring, judging, laughing inside. And then she did something that surprised even herself. She smiled. It's true, Stella said loud and clear. I serve coffee from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Saturday. She walked to the center of the ballroom, stopping next to Victoria. I also serve reality checks when needed, usually for free, but tonight I'm charging. A few people laughed nervously. And yes, Stella continued, I'm here as a consultant, because unlike most people in this room, I actually know the difference between a legitimate investment and a scam. The laughter died. Marcus turned pale. What are you talking about? Victoria demanded. I'm talking, Stella looked straight at Marcus, about someone here selling a Ponzi scheme dressed up as a hedge fund. And if you're smart, you'll run before you lose everything. The room erupted in voices. Dylan appeared beside her, taking her hand. She's right, he said loudly. And I have proof. Marcus started backing toward the exit, but it was too late. The doors opened, and 3 SEC agents walked into the ballroom. Marcus tried to run. He really did. But in $1,000 Italian dress shoes, on polished marble floors after 3 glasses of champagne, he basically slid straight into the arms of an SEC agent. It was hilarious. Mr. Marcus Brennan, the agent said, pulling out handcuffs, you're under arrest for securities fraud, Ponzi scheme, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. This is ridiculous, Marcus shouted. Dylan, do something. Dylan took a step forward. Everyone waited. No. Just like that, the room exploded in whispers. Stella squeezed Dylan's hand tighter. He squeezed back. You can't do this to me. Marcus was being dragged out now. We're partners. We were, Dylan corrected. Past tense. Just like your freedom. Stella bit her lip to keep from laughing. When the doors closed behind Marcus and the agents, the room fell into an awkward silence. 300 wealthy people with no idea what to do. It was Victoria who finally broke the silence. Well, she cleared her throat. That was unexpected. It was planned, Dylan said, turning to the room. And before anyone asks, yes, I knew about the scheme. And yes, I called the SEC. More whispers. Some admiring, others outraged. But the credit isn't mine. Dylan pulled Stella forward. It's hers. Stella identified the fraud in less than 5 minutes. Something my entire team of analysts couldn't do in 3 months. Stella felt her face flush. Dylan, you don't have to. Yes, I do. He looked at her, then at the crowd. Many of you saw the video. You know I took credit from her before, so this time, I'm doing it right. He turned fully toward her now. Stella Ward is not just a waitress. She's an MBA student, a brilliant analyst, and the most ethical person I've ever met. The philosophy profit without purpose is loss in disguise. That's not mine. It belongs to her father, Michael Ward, a man who dedicated his life to teaching ethical finance. Dylan's voice softened. And if my company is really going to follow that philosophy, it has to be with integrity, with honesty, with people like Stella leading the way. The silence was different now. Respectful. So, Dylan gave a slight smile. She serves coffee, and she serves truth, and I'm lucky to have both. Someone started clapping, slowly, then another, and another. Within seconds, the whole room was applauding. Stella felt her eyes burn. She wasn't going to cry. Not here, not in front of them. But it was hard not to feel something when, finally, someone saw beyond the apron. Victoria walked over. Stella braced herself for another attack, but Victoria simply extended her hand. I owe you an apology. I was unnecessarily cruel. Stella hesitated, then shook her hand. I accept, as long as you stop judging people by their jobs. Victoria almost smiled. Fair enough. She glanced at Dylan. You've got a good one. Don't mess it up this time. I'll try. As Victoria walked away, Stella whispered, Did she just give me her approval? I think so. That's weird. Very. A man in his 60s approached. Perfect suit, the posture of someone used to running boardrooms. Miss Ward, James Harrison, CEO of Harrison Financial. He handed her a card. I'd like to talk about job opportunities. Stella blinked. I'm sorry? Anyone who can identify fraud in 5 minutes is exactly the kind of person I want on my team. He smiled. Think about it. 3 more executives came up after him, all offering interviews, opportunities, salaries that made Stella's eyes sting. Is this actually happening? She whispered to Dylan. Welcome to the good side of public exposure. I don't want exposure. I just wanted... She stopped. What did she want? Dylan seemed to understand without her saying it. Justice? Yes, justice. You got it. You saved people today, Stella, people who would have lost everything. She thought of her father, of the money he lost, the pain he carried. He would have been proud, she said softly. Who? My dad. To see this, to know that, his words really mattered. Dylan took her hand again. They always mattered. They just needed the right person to defend them. Stella looked at him, really looked, and saw something she hadn't before. Not the arrogant billionaire, not the calculating businessman, just a man who had made mistakes, admitted them, and tried to fix them. Maybe people really could change. Thank you, she said, for giving credit, for doing this the right way. I should have done it from the start. But you learned. That counts. The moment was interrupted by Jake, appearing out of nowhere with a tray of appetizers. Sorry, but these things cost like $20 each, and I'm not letting them go to waste. Stella laughed. Jake? What are you doing here? Dylan invited me, said you might need moral support. He bit into an hors-d'oeuvre. Wow, this is good. Is that caviar? I think so. Being rich is nice. He held out the tray. Want one? Did you steal that from the waiter? Stole is a strong word. I prefer redistributed. Dylan was trying not to laugh. Your friend is interesting. He's an idiot, but he's my idiot. Jake gave a dramatic bow. Thank you, thank you. I'll be here all week, literally, because I can't afford to go anywhere else. The night went on. More conversations, more job offers, more people finally seeing Stella for who she really was. When they finally left, it was already past midnight. You okay? Dylan asked in the parking lot. Tired? Overwhelmed? Like processing a lot. Understandable. But also, happy? She smiled. It's weird. I haven't felt like this in a long time. Well, you just exposed a fraud scheme and got 5 job offers. I'd say happy is appropriate. Stella looked up at the starry Seattle sky. My dad used to say the stars were reminders, that even in the dark there's always light. He sounded wise. He was. She looked at Dylan. And he would have liked you. Eventually, after giving you a 2-hour lecture on corporate responsibility. Dylan laughed. I would have deserved it. They stood there for a moment, just existing in the same space. Then Stella's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and went pale. What is it? Dylan asked. Stella showed him the message. It was from an unknown number. 4 words, I need to talk, Michael Ward. Impossible. Because Michael Ward had been dead for 3 years. Stella didn't sleep that night. How can you sleep after getting a message from your dead father? Answer, you don't. You stare at your phone at 3 a.m., trying to figure out if you've lost your mind, or if the universe has. At 5:30, she gave up trying and went to work. Bean and Soul was quiet when she arrived. Only the hum of the fridge and the noise inside her head. She made coffee on autopilot, her mind somewhere else. Or rather, 3 years in the past. I need to talk, Michael Ward. It had to be a prank, or a mistake, or... The back door opened. Stella almost dropped the cup, but it was just Dylan, holding a brown paper bag looking like someone who hadn't slept either. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "We don't open until 6. "I know. Jake let me in." "Jake's not here yet. He gave me a copy of the key yesterday." Stella blinked. "Why?" "Because I asked and offered money." Dylan shrugged. "Capitalism works." Despite everything, Stella almost smiled. "You're bribing my coworkers now?" "I prefer the term encouraging cooperation." "Of course you do." Dylan set the bag on the counter. "I brought breakfast, croissants from that French bakery on the expensive street you never go to because it costs as much as your rent." "Specific." "Jake gave me details." "I'm going to kill Jake. He also told me about the message." Stella froze. What?" "The message from your dad." Dylan stepped closer. "You showed it to him last night. He was worried. He called me." "He had no right." "He cares about you." Dylan held her gaze. "So do I. We just want to make sure you're okay." Stella closed her eyes briefly. "I don't know if I'm okay. I don't know what that message is, and I don't know if I want to find out." "Understandable." "Stop using that word. You sound like a corporate chatbot." "Sorry. Habit." They stood in silence for a moment, just the sound of the coffee machine behind them. Then Dylan pushed the bag toward her. "There's something else in here. Besides the croissants. If it's money, I swear." "It's not money." Stella opened the bag so that the croissants were there, and under them, wrapped in tissue paper, something rectangular. She pulled it out. A notebook. Leather cover, dark brown. Gold lettering on the front. Stella Ward. And underneath in smaller letters, "Keep writing what the world needs to hear." Stella stared at it, speechless. "I know it doesn't replace your father's notebook," Dylan said quickly. "Nothing could. But I thought, maybe you'd want to start your own words, your own ideas. Build on his legacy." Stella opened it. The pages were blank, waiting. On the first page, Dylan had written by hand, "For Stella, who taught me that profit without purpose is loss in disguise, and that sometimes the best consultants wear aprons, DC." Her throat tightened. "Dylan, before you say anything," he raised his hand, "this isn't a PR move. It's not for the media. It's not for anyone but you. I just wanted you to know your words matter. Your ideas matter. You matter." Stella looked at him, saw the sincerity in his eyes, the vulnerability he usually hid behind expensive suits and corporate language. "Thank you," she whispered. The back door opened again. Jake walked in, stopped, saw the two of them, and smiled that irritating smile. "Ah, sweet moment. Go on, pretend I'm not here, Jake," Stella warned. "I just came to get my apron. And my $20, Dylan." Dylan pulled out his wallet and handed him a 50. "Keep the change. I love this man." Jake grabbed the money. "Stella, marry him." "Jake, I'm just saying. He's rich, polite, likes you, and pays me to be his accomplice. Perfect husband. You just sold your friendship for $50? Technically, I sold it for 20. The extra 30 was a bonus." Jake winked and left. Silence returned, but now it had a touch of humor. "Your friend is unique," Dylan said. "That's one word for him." Stella ran her fingers over the notebook. "Look, about the message, you don't have to explain, but I want to." She took a deep breath. "My father died 3 years ago. Heart attack. No warning. One day he was here, the next, he wasn't. And that message, it doesn't make sense. It can't be him. Could it have been someone who had access to his phone? Family? He didn't have family, just me and my mom, and she doesn't talk to me anymore." Dylan frowned. "Why?" "Because she blames him for the financial situation, for the scheme he fell for, and she blames me for defending him." Stella gave a humorless smile. "Family is complicated." "It is. So no, I don't know who sent that message, but I know it wasn't my dad." Dylan nodded slowly. "What if it was someone trying to help you, using his name to get your attention?" "For what, no, but I can look into it if you want." Quietly, Stella hesitated. The thought of someone pretending to be her father was unsettling, but the thought of never knowing who it was worse. "Fine, but quietly. No drama. No drama. I promise." The front door opened. Richard, the manager. He stopped when he saw Dylan. "Ms. Ward, we open at 6. It's 5:50. "I know. Sorry, just a minute." Richard looked at Dylan, then at the notebook in Stella's hand, then back at Dylan. "The customer finally paid for the advice, huh?" He shook his head. "About time." And he left to unlock the front door. Stella and Dylan looked at each other and laughed. "He's not wrong," Dylan said. I should have paid for the advice from the start. You did. In drama and public humiliation. Fair enough. Dylan turned to leave but stopped at the door. Stella? Yes? I know you're still deciding whether you can trust me again. And I get it, but I want you to know I'm not going to give up. On trying to be better. On proving I've changed. Stella held the notebook against her chest. Why? Why care so much? Dylan smiled. That genuine smile that softened his whole face. Because you made me want to be the kind of person who deserves to have coffee with you. And he left before she could answer. Stella stood there, alone in the empty cafe, holding the new notebook and feeling something dangerous growing inside her. Hope? Her phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. Meet me at Memorial Park, tomorrow noon. I promise to explain everything. M.W. Memorial Park at noon was full of people having picnics, throwing frisbees, and pretending Seattle wasn't about to rain any minute. Stella arrived 15 minutes early. Nervous. Looking for what? A ghost? She sat on a bench near the fountain. Waited. At exactly 12, someone sat beside her. It wasn't her father. It was a woman around 70, gray hair in a bun, round glasses, a gentle smile. Stella Ward? Yes, Stella frowned. Who are you? Margaret Chen, economics professor at the University of Washington. She extended her hand. Your economics professor, actually. Stella shook her hand, confused. Professor Chen? But you? The message said Michael Ward. I know, Margaret sighed. Sorry for the drama, but I didn't know how else to get your attention without you blocking me. Why would I block you? Because I have information about your father, and I knew you wouldn't want to hear it. Not from a stranger. Stella's heart raced. What kind of information? Margaret pulled a folder from her bag. Your father and I were friends, a long time ago. We worked together on financial education programs for low-income communities. When he left us, he asked me for a favor. She opened the folder. Inside were documents, photos, and a sealed letter with Stella's name on it. He asked me to give this to you when you were ready, when you'd found your way. Margaret smiled. And when I saw you at that conference tearing that arrogant billionaire apart on national television, I knew you were ready. Stella took the letter with trembling hands. He knew he was going to die? No. But he was cautious, always prepared. Margaret gently touched her shoulder. Read it when you're ready. No rush. And she stood up to leave. Professor Chen? Yes, thank you for keeping this, for waiting. Margaret smiled. Your father was too good for this world. I'm glad you inherited that from him. Stella didn't open the letter in the park. She put it in her pocket and went straight home. She locked the door, sat on the bed, took a deep breath, and opened it. Her father's handwriting hit her like a punch to the stomach. Those careful letters, that meticulous way of writing. My dear Stella, if you're reading this, it means Margaret decided you were ready. And if she decided, I trust her. I want you to know that everything I did, every decision, every sacrifice, was because I believed in you, in your potential, in your kindness. I made mistakes, I invested in the wrong place, I trusted the wrong people. But I never regretted investing in you. Keep being the one who challenges the system, who questions, who fights for what's right. And when you find someone who values that in you, don't let them go. Love is the best investment of all. I love you forever, Dad. Stella cried. For the first time in 3 years, she let it all out. The pain, the longing, the anger of losing him too soon, but also the gratitude for having had him, even if only for a short time. When she finally stopped crying, she realized something. Graduation was tomorrow, and she needed a dress. The graduation ceremony at the University of Washington took place in a packed gym. Families shouting names, babies crying, the joyful chaos of hundreds of people celebrating achievements. Stella was backstage with the other graduates, fixing her cap for the 10th time. Ben appeared beside her, nervous, terrified. You'll be fine. Just don't trip on stage. Thanks, that really helped. That's what friends are for. Sarah walked over too. Guys, there's a man outside asking for you. Stella, for me? Who? A super handsome billionaire in a suit who looks like he walked out of a magazine. Sarah grinned. Your life is literally a romantic comedy. Stella felt her face heat up. Dylan's here, and with flowers. A lot of flowers, like an embarrassingly large amount. Oh my God, Ben laughed. Go, we'll hold your spot in line. Stella left backstage and found Dylan in the hallway. He was indeed holding a ridiculous bouquet of flowers. This is a lot. I know. Dylan looked a little embarrassed. The florist asked what the occasion was, and I said, the MBA graduation of the most amazing woman in the world, and he kind of got carried away. Despite everything, Stella laughed. You're ridiculous, I know, but I'm your ridiculous. We haven't decided that yet. Fair. Dylan held out the flowers. Congratulations, Stella. You deserve every second of this. Thank you. She took the bouquet. Are you going to watch? If you let me. Of course. Just try not to do anything embarrassing, okay? Dylan gave her that smile. Me? Embarrassing? Never. The ceremony began. Names were called. Diplomas handed out. Stella waited for her turn, her heart pounding. Finally, Stella Ward, MBA in Finance. She walked up to the stage, took the diploma, and at that moment, everything was worth it. The double shifts, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices. Worth it. She was walking off the stage when she heard someone ask for the microphone. Excuse me, can I say something real quick? It was Dylan, in the middle of the audience, holding the microphone someone had handed him. Oh no, what is he doing? Stella whispered to Ben. Something amazing or horribly embarrassing. My money's on embarrassing. Dylan climbed onto the stage. The dean tried to intervene, but Dylan was already speaking. Sorry to interrupt. I promise I'll be quick. He searched for Stella among the graduates. Stella Ward. Where are you? Everyone turned to her. Stella wanted to disappear. Here, she said softly. Come here, please. Dylan, what are you? Please, trust me. Against all logic, Stella walked back up on stage. Is this really happening? She whispered. Yes, and I'm terrified. So, Dylan pulled something from his pocket, a notebook, his notebook. You taught me something important, that profit without purpose is just hidden loss. And I've spent months trying to find my purpose, trying to be better. He opened the notebook. Read the last page. Your father wrote many wise things, but there's one that stayed with me. Love is the best investment of all. The gym went silent. Dylan set the notebook aside and took her hand. Stella Ward, you changed my life. You made me question everything. You made me want to be someone worthy of having coffee with you. Dylan, he knelt down. Half the gym screamed. Stella froze. So I'm asking, here, in front of all these witnesses. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Will you be my partner and my wife? Absolute silence. Stella looked at him, at the eyes that once showed arrogance but now only showed hope. Just say yes, someone shouted. Probably Ben. Stella laughed through her tears. You're completely insane. You know that, right? Totally. So? Will you? She thought about her dad. The letter, the words about love being the best investment, and she smiled. Yes. The gym erupted in cheers. 6 months later, Bean and Soul Cafe looked unrecognizable and completely familiar at the same time. The tables were the same. The espresso machine still hissed the same way. The smell of fresh coffee still filled the air. But now there were flowers, lots of flowers, white chairs, and an arch set up in front of the counter where Stella had served 1,000 coffees and once destroyed a billionaire. This is surreal, Stella said, looking around in the simple white dress she had chosen because her father would have approved. It's perfect, Emma corrected, adjusting her veil. You're getting married in the place where you met him. It's symbolic. Or lazy. We didn't have to rent a venue. Stella, it's your wedding. Try to be romantic for 5 seconds. Jake showed up wearing a suit for the first time in his life. He looked uncomfortable. How does anyone breathe in this? I'm being strangled by expensive fabric. You look great, Stella said. I look ridiculous, but for you, I'll endure it. He peeked through the door. There are a lot of people out there. Like, a lot. Even the mayor came. The mayor? Dylan invited him. Something about strategic networking. His words, not mine. Stella rolled her eyes but couldn't stop smiling. The door opened and Ben walked in, also in a suit. Bride ready? Because the groom is out there having a minor nervous breakdown. Really? He's fine. Just repeating his vows in his head and sweating through a $3,000 suit. It's kind of funny. Sarah appeared behind him. Stella, you have to see the new sign. What sign? Come on. They dragged Stella to the window. Outside, above the entrance of the cafe, a brand new sign glowed. Bean and Soul Institute. Finance with Purpose. And below, in smaller letters, in memory of Michael Ward, who taught us that profit without purpose is just disguised loss. Stella felt her eyes burn. He did this? Wedding surprise, Emma said softly. Dylan bought the cafe from Richard 3 months ago. He's turning it into the financial education institute your father always dreamed of. But the cafe? It stays. Only now half the space will be for free finance classes, for people who need it. Stella couldn't speak. She just stared at the sign and felt her heart burst. I'm going to ruin my makeup, she finally whispered. Too late. Sarah handed her a tissue. But it's worth it. The ceremony began with the classical music Dylan had insisted on, and Stella had reluctantly agreed to. She walked down the aisle set up between the tables. She passed familiar faces, teachers, former classmates, regulars who had watched the whole story unfold. And there, waiting with that nervous smile, was Dylan. Hi, he whispered when she reached him. Hi. You look beautiful. You're sweating. I know, it's embarrassing. The officiant cleared his throat. Shall we begin? The ceremony was short, simple, perfect. When it was time for the vows, Dylan pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. I wrote something, but now that you're standing here in front of me, it feels inadequate. Read it anyway. Stella encouraged. Dylan took a deep breath. Stella Ward. You walked into my life asking if I wanted quick profit or a clean conscience, and I thought it was a joke. He smiled. But you taught me it was the most important question anyone could ask. You made me question everything. You made me want to be better. And today, in front of all these witnesses, I promise to choose a clean conscience. Always. Because you showed me that's the only profit that really matters. Soft applause. Stella wiped away a tear. My turn? Your turn. She had no paper, nothing prepared. Dylan Carter. You walked into my cafe being a complete jerk. Laughter. And you stayed a jerk for at least 2 weeks. More laughter. Dylan laughed too. But then you did something no one had done in years. You listened to me. Really listened. Not as a waitress, not as a statistic, as a person. She took his hands. And today I promise to keep putting you in your place when needed. To remind you that purpose matters more than profit. And to love you even when you talk like a corporate press release. Dylan laughed through his tears. Fair, the officiant smiled. Rings, please? Jake stepped forward with the rings on a little tray. Of course Jake would be the ring bearer. Don't judge me, he said. I'm basically the Cupid of this story. You literally sold information for $50, Stella reminded him. And it was the best investment I ever made. Look where we are now. Jake. Sorry, rings. Here. Dylan slid the ring onto Stella's finger. She slipped his on too. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Dylan pulled Stella close. Finally, he whispered, a safe investment. Did you really just make a finance joke at our wedding? I married you. Too late to complain, and he kissed her. The cafe burst into applause. The reception happened right there. Where else would it be? Instead of champagne, they toasted with espresso cups. This is so you two, Ben said. Caffeinated and slightly chaotic. Thanks, I guess, Stella replied. Dylan was surrounded by investors, all eager to hear about the new institute. Stella watched from a distance, smiling. Jake appeared beside her. You did something good, you know? I know. I mean it. That man walked in here as an arrogant billionaire, and you changed him into someone who uses money for the right things. He changed himself. I just pointed the way. Still, Jake raised his cup to love and to putting billionaires in their place. Stella laughed and clinked her cup against his. To love. Later, when the party was in full swing, Stella noticed something. An empty chair near the altar. On it, her father's brown notebook lay open. She walked closer. Dylan had placed it there, a silent tribute. Stella picked up the notebook. On the last page, something new was written. In Dylan's handwriting, Michael, thank you for raising someone who taught me the difference between price and value. I'll spend the rest of my life being worthy of her. Dylan. Below it, Stella wrote, Dad, you were right. Love is the best investment of all. And on the final line, written in both their handwriting, not every billionaire needs profit, some need love. Dylan appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. You like it? I love it. She turned in his arms. Thank you. For everything. Thank you. For giving me that financial advice on the very first day. Technically, you didn't pay for that advice. Technically. Dylan smiled. I paid with the rest of my life. Best deal you ever made. By far. They kissed again, surrounded by friends, family, and the smell of coffee, the beginning of everything. And outside on the sign, Michael Ward's legacy shone. Because in the end, this wasn't just the story of a waitress and a billionaire. It was the story of how a cup of coffee and one sharp question changed two lives and created a purpose bigger than any profit could buy. Not every billionaire needs profit. Some need love. And so, between coffee cups, life lessons, and a love that started with the most honest question in the world, do you want quick profit or a clear conscience? Stella and Dylan proved that sometimes the best investments don't show up in charts or spreadsheets. They appear in smiles behind counters, in the courage to admit mistakes, and in the daily choice to be someone better. The Bean and Soul Institute is still open today, serving exceptional coffee and offering free financial education to those who need it most. And if you pass by on any morning, you can see a framed brown notebook hanging on the wall, open to the last page, with a phrase that changed two lives. Not every billionaire needs profit. Some need love. And what about you? What did you think of Stella and Dylan's story, the waitress who gave the billionaire the best lesson of his life? Tell us in the comments. We want to know, what was your favorite moment? Would you have given the same answer Stella did on that first day? Do you believe people like Dylan can really change? On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more emotional, funny, and inspiring stories like this one. Because here, we believe every story deserves a happy ending. And sometimes, all it takes is a good cup of coffee and an honest question. See you in the next story.